I can't believe they actually left me, I whispered to myself as I rubbed my eyes and glanced around the quiet living room. Christmas morning had arrived, and instead of the warm chatter and laughter I had imagined, the house was silent except for the faint hum of the heater. The tree lights twinkled in the corner, casting colorful reflections across the hardwood floor, and the ornaments shimmered as if mocking my loneliness. I stumbled toward the kitchen, hoping to catch a glimpse of my family, but the sight that met me made my stomach drop. The coffee pot was empty, the plates were cleared, and there wasn't a single stocking in sight that hadn't already been touched. My heart pounded as I grabbed my phone, quickly scrolling through text messages and missed calls, each one a reminder that I had been completely forgotten this morning. Memories from last night flashed through my mind, the laughter around the dinner table, the clinking of glasses, the scent of cinnamon and roasted ham, and I couldn't understand how everything had gone from so warm and full of life to this eerie emptiness overnight. Panic started to creep in as I considered all the possibilities. Maybe they had gone out for a surprise shopping trip, maybe there was an emergency, but none of that could soothe the sinking feeling in my chest. I peeked through the curtains and saw the car empty in the driveway, tires cold from the night air, a stark reminder that my family had simply driven away without me. Tears pricked the corners of my eyes, but I fought them back, trying to steady my breathing as I made my way to the tree. I looked at the carefully wrapped presents, each one labeled with names I recognized, Michael, Mom, Dad, but mine remained conspicuously absent. The silence of the house pressed in on me like a heavy blanket, every creak of the floorboards echoing through the empty rooms. I sank down onto the couch, clutching a throw pillow, my mind racing with questions and what-ifs, trying to piece together why this had happened. I remembered last year's Christmas, the laughter, the warmth, the family gathered together in that very living room, and the contrast with this moment was so sharp it felt unreal. I imagined their morning without me, the chatter, the smiles, the joy, and a pang of longing mixed with frustration stabbed through me. I considered calling friends, anyone who could bring a little light into this unexpectedly lonely morning, but before I could dial a number, I heard a soft knock at the door. My heart leapt as I scrambled up, hope battling the skepticism I felt in my chest. When I opened it, a familiar neighbor, holding a small plate of cookies and a thermos of hot cocoa, smiled warmly and said, "I thought you might need a little company this morning." Relief and gratitude washed over me, and a small laugh escaped as I invited them in. Together, we set up a little impromptu breakfast near the tree, sipping cocoa, nibbling cookies, and sharing stories as the morning sunlight streamed through the windows, turning the quiet house into a space filled with warmth and laughter once again. For a moment, I forgot the absence of my family, feeling the comfort of connection and realizing that even on a Christmas morning that started so unexpectedly, kindness and care could fill the gaps left behind. The day wasn't ruined, it was simply different, and as I glanced at the sparkling tree and the neighbor's smiling face, I understood that Christmas wasn't just about who was physically present, but about the love and warmth we could create, even in the smallest moments. As the morning sunlight continued to pour through the windows, casting golden rays across the living room, I sat at the small table with my neighbor, sipping the warm cocoa and nibbling on a cookie that was still slightly soft from the oven. The smell of cinnamon and chocolate filled the air, creating a sense of comfort that slowly eased the tight knot of loneliness in my chest. I could hear the faint dingle of the wind chime outside and the occasional chirp of a bird landing on the frosted windowsill, and it reminded me that even when things seemed bleak, small joys could still be found. I glanced at the tree again, noticing the way the ornaments reflected the morning light, each one a tiny spark of color and memory, and I realized how much thought and care had gone into every decoration. I began to tell my neighbor about the confusion and disappointment I had felt earlier, my words tumbling out quickly, full of emotion, and they listened patiently, nodding and offering gentle comments that made me feel understood. Their presence was a quiet reassurance, a reminder that even when family was momentarily absent, there could still be connection and companionship in unexpected places. I started to laugh softly as I recounted a few silly mishaps from last night, how the cat had jumped onto the table at the worst possible moment, knocking over a plate of cookies and sending everyone into a brief panic, and for the first time that morning, the tension in my shoulders began to ease. The neighbor smiled and shared a story of their own, a funny memory from their childhood Christmases, and soon we were both laughing, the sound bouncing off the walls and making the house feel lively in a way it had not since the moment I woke up alone. As I listened, I thought about my family, about Michael and my parents, and how even though they had left without me, it was clear they had not done so out of malice, but perhaps confusion or distraction, and that understanding helped to soften the sting of abandonment. The neighbor suggested we make a little Christmas breakfast together, using what we had in the kitchen, and we pulled out a small pan to make scrambled eggs and toast, arranging them neatly on the table with the cocoa and cookies. The simple act of preparing a meal alongside someone else, sharing stories and smiles, created a warmth that was different from the usual family chaos but comforting in its own right. I began to think of ways I could reach out to my family, to let them know I was safe and that I had enjoyed this unexpected moment of connection, and I felt a sense of relief wash over me as I imagined the text messages I would soon send. For a while, the clock ticked almost unnoticed as we chatted about favorite holiday traditions, funny incidents from past Christmases, and little plans for the day, turning what had begun as a lonely morning into a memory that was cozy and bright. I realized that the absence of my family for this brief moment had allowed me to slow down, to notice the small joys that might otherwise be overlooked, and to connect meaningfully with someone new. By the time the sun had risen higher, flooding the room with a brighter light, I felt a renewed sense of energy and optimism, a sense that Christmas was not merely about the presence of those we loved but about the experiences we created and the kindness we shared, and as I glanced again at the twinkling tree and the neighbor waving goodbye with a warm smile, I understood that this morning, while unexpected, had been a beautiful reminder that even in moments of isolation, warmth, laughter, and connection could be found in the most surprising places. After the neighbor left, I stayed by the window for a few minutes, watching their car disappear down the snowy street, leaving behind the faint echo of laughter and the scent of fresh cocoa in the air. The warmth from the morning lingered, but a subtle anxiety returned as I remembered my family had still not come back. I decided to send a quick text to Michael, my older brother, asking if everything was all right, my fingers hovering over the keyboard, hesitant to press send, fearing the response or lack thereof. As I hit send, I walked back to the living room, looking again at the Christmas tree, each ornament glinting like a memory of past holidays, of laughter, and of shared moments that now felt distant. I noticed a small envelope peeking out from under the tree, one that I had not seen before, and my heart skipped a beat as I picked it up, feeling the weight of curiosity and excitement. Inside, a neatly folded note in my mother's handwriting read, "Emma, we did not mean to leave you behind. We had an emergency errand to run and forgot to call. Please forgive us. We will be back very soon." Relief flooded through me, mixed with a wave of lingering frustration and laughter at the absurdity of the situation. I sank back onto the couch, hugging the note to my chest, feeling a sense of calm knowing that my family had not abandoned me intentionally. I decided to make the most of the morning while I waited, setting up the remaining cocoa and cookies on a small tray and arranging the chairs so that it felt like a proper holiday breakfast for one. The sunlight had grown stronger, casting long shadows across the floor, and the house seemed to hum with a quiet energy, a space waiting to be filled with voices and footsteps. I pulled out a small notebook from the coffee table and began jotting down ideas for holiday traditions, moments I wanted to remember, and small goals for the day, feeling a renewed sense of purpose despite the earlier disappointment. The minutes ticked by, and I found comfort in the familiar routines, arranging the ornaments, adjusting the presents, straightening the throw pillows, and taking deep breaths of the pine-scented air. Then, just as I finished writing a small note about laughter and togetherness, I heard the familiar crunch of tires on the driveway and the murmur of voices outside. My heart leapt, and I rushed to the window, spotting Michael and my parents carrying a small basket of groceries, their faces a mix of apology and amusement. I opened the door wide, stepping out into the crisp winter air, feeling the snow crunch under my boots, and they enveloped me in hugs, their warmth and laughter filling the space around us. Michael chuckled as he handed me a small package, saying, "You should not have been left alone, we are sorry, here is a little something to make it up to you." I laughed, shaking my head, feeling the tension of the morning dissolve completely as we carried the basket inside together, arranging the items and preparing to make a proper breakfast as a family. Sitting back down by the tree, the ornaments sparkling in the sunlight, I realized that even moments of confusion or accidental neglect could be transformed into stories of connection, care, and understanding. As we settled into our holiday breakfast, sipping cocoa, laughing at silly anecdotes, and sharing the warmth of our presence, I felt a profound appreciation for the simple joys of family, the surprises that life could bring, and the reassurance that even when things did not go as planned, love and togetherness could always find a way to shine through. After we settled back inside, the aroma of fresh cinnamon rolls and brewing coffee filled the kitchen, mingling with the scent of pine from the tree, creating an atmosphere that felt both familiar and comforting. I helped my parents unpack the groceries, placing eggs, milk, and a few extra treats on the counter, while Michael adjusted the chairs and pulled out plates and utensils for everyone. The sunlight streaming through the windows highlighted the frost on the edges of the panes, sparkling like tiny crystals, and it made the room feel almost magical, a perfect holiday morning finally restored. As we began preparing breakfast together, laughter returned naturally, punctuated by small teasing comments and playful nudges that reminded me of all the Christmas mornings we had shared in the past. Michael recounted a funny story about a time our dog had sneaked into the living room and tangled himself in the garland, causing a minor disaster that had left us all in fits of laughter, and my parents added their own anecdotes, each story weaving together a tapestry of memories that made the present moment feel richer. I found myself smiling more freely, my earlier disappointment fading into the background as I focused on the warmth of shared activity, the simple joy of moving together in a familiar rhythm, chopping fruit, stirring eggs, and arranging the table so that it looked inviting and festive. At one point, my mother handed me a small ornament she had picked up at a local craft fair, saying it was for me to hang on the tree, and I felt a pang of gratitude for the thoughtfulness, realizing that despite the morning confusion, they had been thinking of me. Michael passed me a plate of scrambled eggs and toast, insisting I eat first, and I took a bite, savoring the flavor and the comfort that came with it, a reminder that small gestures could have a large emotional impact. As we sat down together, the conversation flowed easily, touching on plans for the day, the memories of past Christmases, and even light-hearted jokes about the chaos of holiday preparations, and with each exchange, the warmth of family enveloped me, creating a sense of belonging that I had feared lost earlier. I glanced at the tree, noticing how the ornaments shimmered in the morning light, the carefully wrapped presents tucked neatly beneath, and I realized that this day, while it had begun with confusion and loneliness, had transformed into something even more memorable than I could have imagined. The house was alive with voices, laughter, and the clinking of utensils against plates, each sound a reminder that family connection was not only about presents but about shared experiences, mutual care, and the joy found in simple moments. I felt a renewed sense of appreciation for the patience and thoughtfulness of my parents, for the humor and energy of Michael, and for the way small acts of kindness, like a neighbor bringing cocoa or a handwritten note, could turn a potentially disappointing morning into an opportunity for warmth and connection. By the time we finished breakfast, the snow outside had begun to melt slightly in the sunlight, creating glistening patches that reflected the brightness of the day, and I felt a sense of peace settle over me, a calm understanding that Christmas was about love, togetherness, and the creation of memories that could carry warmth long after the day itself. As we cleared the table and carried dishes to the sink, I realized that the earlier tension and worry had been replaced with laughter, gratitude, and the comforting knowledge that even unexpected detours could lead to moments of joy and connection, and that the love of family, expressed through presence, attention, and care, was the true heart of the holiday. After clearing the dishes from breakfast, we moved back into the living room where the morning sunlight danced across the floor, creating patterns that shifted with the movement of the tree lights and casting a warm glow over the room. Michael suggested we play a holiday game, something simple that could bring laughter and light-hearted competition, and soon we were setting up a board game on the coffee table, arranging pieces carefully and teasing each other about strategy and past victories. I felt a sense of anticipation and excitement, a feeling that had been absent earlier in the morning, as the house began to feel truly alive again with the presence and energy of my family. My parents settled into the couch with mugs of cocoa, their eyes twinkling with amusement as they watched Michael and me debate over the rules and take turns making moves, and I noticed how easy it was to laugh freely. The earlier tension of being left behind replaced entirely by connection and shared joy. As the game progressed, small moments of clumsiness and accidental mistakes led to bursts of laughter, each incident strengthening the sense of togetherness, and I found myself appreciating the little quirks and personalities that made our family unique. I glanced around the room, noticing how the sunlight highlighted the tree ornaments, the shimmer of tinsel, and the little details of the decorations that each carried memories and stories of past Christmases, and I felt a deep sense of gratitude for the continuity of tradition and the comfort it brought. At one point, Michael accidentally knocked over a small figurine, and we all gasped, only to burst into laughter when it landed harmlessly on the carpet, and the shared relief and amusement reminded me how even small surprises could create lasting memories. I felt a warm sense of pride and happiness as my parents complimented the way I had arranged the breakfast and the decorations, acknowledging the effort I had put into making the morning special despite the earlier confusion, and their words reinforced the importance of intention and care in creating joyful moments. We spent the next hour alternating between the game, chatting about plans for the rest of the day, and sharing small anecdotes about holidays from our childhoods, each story weaving into the next and creating a tapestry of shared experience that brought us closer together. I could feel the bond with my family deepening, each laugh, each glance, and each gentle teasing comment contributing to a sense of belonging and love that was tangible and heartwarming. As the game concluded with Michael narrowly winning, we all congratulated him, and he responded with a playful bow, acknowledging the fun and lightheartedness that had filled the morning. I noticed how even the smallest moments, the clink of a mug, the shuffle of game pieces, the sound of laughter, had taken on new significance, turning an ordinary activity into something meaningful and memorable. The room was filled with warmth, not only from the sunlight and the heat of the house but from the presence and affection of my family, and I realized that these simple acts of togetherness were the essence of the holiday spirit. Looking out the window at the gentle snowfall beginning again, I felt a profound appreciation for this Christmas morning, for the resilience of our connection, and for the reminder that even when situations begin with uncertainty or disappointment, the love, laughter, and shared experiences of family could transform the day into something truly special, leaving memories that would linger long after the snow melted and the ornaments were packed away. After the laughter from the game subsided, we moved toward the fireplace where stockings hung in a neat row, each one carefully labeled and filled with small surprises and treats. I picked up my stocking, feeling the familiar texture of the knit fabric and the little bulges of wrapped candies and trinkets inside, and a wave of warmth and nostalgia washed over me. Michael teased me about taking too long to open it, and I laughed, shaking my head as I reached in to pull out a small chocolate, a tiny ornament, and a handwritten note from my parents wishing me a Merry Christmas and expressing their love. The gesture, simple as it was, reminded me that thoughtfulness could speak louder than any elaborate celebration, and it made the morning feel complete. We spent the next moments opening presents, each exchange filled with anticipation, surprise, and joy, the sound of wrapping paper tearing and exclamations of delight echoing around the room. My parents handed me a small box, and when I opened it, I found a delicate necklace with a tiny snowflake pendant, a gift they said reminded them of my love for winter and the holidays. I smiled widely, holding it carefully and thanking them, feeling a profound connection to the people who had caused me so much worry just hours before. Michael received a gadget he had wanted for months, and we all cheered as he examined it with excitement, sharing the joy of giving and receiving. Outside, the snow continued to fall gently, blanketing the yard in a soft layer of white, and the view from the window seemed almost magical, perfectly complementing the warmth and happiness inside the house. I noticed how the sunlight reflected off the snow, creating sparkles that mirrored the glittering ornaments on the tree, and I felt a sense of harmony between the world outside and the one we had created indoors. As we enjoyed our presents and shared stories about past holidays, I reflected on the journey of the morning, from the shock and loneliness of waking up alone to the warmth, laughter, and love that now surrounded me, and it struck me how quickly circumstances could shift when compassion, understanding, and patience were present. We decided to take a short walk outside to enjoy the winter scenery, bundling up in coats, scarves, and gloves, and stepping into the crisp air that made every breath feel refreshing. Michael and I made footprints in the fresh snow, laughing as we competed to see who could leave the most elaborate patterns, while our parents joined in, their laughter ringing out across the yard, and for a while, the world felt simple, joyful, and filled with the magic of the season. We returned inside, cheeks rosy from the cold, and settled by the fire with mugs of hot cocoa, the flickering flames casting a cozy glow over the room. I felt a deep appreciation for the presence of my family, for the love and effort that had gone into making this day special, and for the unexpected lessons learned about patience, understanding, and finding joy in the small moments. The morning had begun with uncertainty and disappointment, but through connection, kindness, and shared experiences, it had transformed into a memory I knew I would carry with me for years to come. As I glanced around at Michael, my parents, and the sparkling tree, I realized that the essence of Christmas was not perfection or grand gestures but the love, laughter, and togetherness that filled the spaces between us, creating warmth and happiness that could endure long after the ornaments were packed away and the snow had melted. After returning from our short walk, we settled back into the living room, the fire crackling softly and casting flickering shadows across the walls. The snow outside had settled into a smooth, white blanket, glistening in the soft afternoon light, and it made the world beyond the windows feel serene and magical. I poured another cup of cocoa, the steam rising gently and carrying the comforting scent of chocolate and warmth, and I handed one to Michael, who smiled and took it gratefully, sinking into the couch beside me. My parents sat across from us, sipping their drinks and chatting quietly, occasionally laughing at a comment or a story that Michael and I shared, and the room felt full of life, warmth, and connection. I glanced at the tree, noticing how the ornaments reflected the light in gentle patterns, and I thought about how different the morning had been from the shock and loneliness of waking up alone to this peaceful, joyful atmosphere, and I realized how quickly circumstances could change when patience, understanding, and care were present. Michael suggested we play another game, this time a card game that required concentration and a bit of strategy, and we eagerly set up on the coffee table, shuffling the deck and arranging the cards with focused anticipation. As the game progressed, we teased each other, celebrated small victories, and laughed at our mistakes, the easy camaraderie creating a rhythm of play that felt both familiar and special. I noticed how my parents joined in, offering guidance and commentary, their voices full of warmth and humor, and I felt a profound sense of appreciation for their presence, realizing that the moments of shared joy and interaction were what made holidays truly meaningful. At one point, Michael made a clever move that caught me off guard, and I could not help but laugh, admiring his quick thinking and enjoying the challenge, while our parents chuckled at our competitive spirit and joined in the playful banter. Between rounds of the game, we shared stories about past holidays, funny mishaps, and memorable experiences, each anecdote weaving a tapestry of shared memories that strengthened our bond and made the present moment feel richer. I took a moment to observe the room, the cozy warmth of the fireplace, the colorful decorations, the gentle snow falling outside, and the smiles on my family's faces, and I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude for this unexpected journey from isolation to connection, realizing that even a morning that began with disappointment could evolve into a day filled with love, laughter, and meaningful interaction. We finished the game with laughter and applause, congratulating Michael on his narrow win, and I felt a sense of contentment and satisfaction, knowing that the morning had been transformed into a cherished memory. As we lingered by the fire, sipping our cocoa and chatting about plans for the afternoon, I reflected on the lessons of the day, that love and patience could bridge gaps created by confusion or absence, that small gestures of kindness could create warmth even in moments of uncertainty, and that the true essence of Christmas lay in togetherness, shared experiences, and the joy of being present with those we care about. I glanced again at the tree, its ornaments sparkling in the light, and at my family, their laughter and warmth filling the room, and I understood that even unexpected detours, moments of worry, or initial loneliness could be transformed into memories of connection, love, and joy that would stay with me long after the snow melted and the holiday decorations were put away. As the afternoon progressed, the sunlight began to soften, casting a warm golden hue across the living room, and the gentle flicker of the fireplace added a cozy ambience that made the space feel even more inviting. Michael suggested we take a moment to sit together and look through old family photo albums that had been stored on the shelf for years, and I eagerly agreed, curious to revisit memories that I had almost forgotten. We gathered on the couch, each of us holding a section of the album, flipping through pages filled with pictures of past Christmases, birthdays, vacations, and everyday moments that captured the essence of our family life. I found myself smiling at the sight of younger versions of us, the awkward poses, the oversized sweaters, and the candid laughter frozen in time, and it reminded me how much we had grown and how each moment, no matter how small, contributed to the story of our family. My parents shared anecdotes behind the photos, recalling the funny incidents, heartfelt gestures, and lessons learned during those times, and I listened intently, feeling a deeper connection to the people who had shaped my life. Michael laughed at a picture of us building a snowman in the yard, remembering how it had collapsed multiple times before we finally succeeded, and we all joined in the laughter, the sound echoing pleasantly through the room and filling it with warmth. I noticed the subtle details in the photographs, the way our eyes crinkled when we smiled, the decorations we had used, and the excitement captured in our expressions, and it made me appreciate the continuity of family traditions and the small, meaningful moments that often went unnoticed. As we continued flipping through the pages, I realized how the morning's events, from being momentarily left behind to the eventual reunion, mirrored the themes in the photos: unexpected challenges, moments of surprise, and ultimately, the enduring love and support of family. I felt a sense of gratitude for the patience and care of my parents and the light-hearted energy of Michael, and I reflected on how these qualities had turned what could have been a lonely and disappointing morning into a day filled with connection, laughter, and joy. After the albums, we spent time sharing stories about our favorite holiday traditions, from baking cookies to decorating the tree to playing games late into the evening, each memory reinforcing our sense of togetherness and creating an atmosphere of warmth and happiness. The snow outside continued to fall lightly, creating a serene backdrop for the indoor celebrations, and I felt a deep appreciation for the contrast between the quiet, pristine world outside and the lively, affectionate world inside. We discussed plans for the rest of the holiday season, including visiting relatives, preparing special meals, and finding ways to create new memories while honoring old traditions, and the excitement in our voices reflected our eagerness to continue celebrating together. I noticed how the sunlight shifted, highlighting different parts of the room, and how the ornaments on the tree caught the light in new ways, each sparkle a small reminder of the joy and beauty surrounding us. As the afternoon waned, I realized that this Christmas, which had begun with uncertainty and isolation, had become one of the most memorable and meaningful I had experienced, filled with laughter, love, and the affirmation that even unexpected detours could lead to moments of profound connection and happiness. Sitting there with Michael and our parents, the albums open on our laps and the fire crackling softly, I felt a sense of peace and fulfillment, understanding that the essence of the holiday was not in perfection or flawless planning but in the shared experiences, the love, and the joy that we created together, turning every challenge and surprise into lasting, cherished memories. As the late afternoon sun began to dip lower in the sky, casting a warm amber glow across the living room, we gathered together one last time to share a quiet moment by the fireplace, each of us wrapped in blankets and holding mugs of steaming cocoa. Michael leaned back against the couch, his face relaxed and content, and I noticed the small smile playing on my parents' lips as they glanced around the room, taking in the cozy scene we had created together. The tree lights twinkled softly, reflecting off the ornaments and casting delicate patterns across the walls, and the snow outside continued to fall gently, creating a serene winter landscape that complemented the warmth inside. We began talking about our favorite memories from the day, each of us recounting moments that had stood out, the surprise note from my mother, the laughter during the games, the gentle teasing, and the joy of opening gifts, and with each story, the sense of connection and love in the room deepened. I realized how different this Christmas had felt compared to others, how the morning's uncertainty had transformed into an afternoon filled with laughter, warmth, and meaningful interaction, and how small gestures and thoughtfulness could create profound emotional impact. Michael mentioned how he had never appreciated the simple moments of togetherness so much, and our parents nodded, agreeing that sometimes the best memories were created in the midst of unplanned or unexpected circumstances. We discussed plans for the evening, including a special holiday meal we would prepare together, and the anticipation of cooking and sharing food added another layer of excitement to the day. I took a moment to glance around the room, noticing the ornaments, the wrapped presents, the fire flickering in the hearth, and the soft snow outside, and I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude for the love and care that had filled every corner of the house. The conversation shifted to dreams and hopes for the coming year, and I listened as each family member shared thoughts, aspirations, and intentions, feeling inspired by the openness and support in the room. Michael laughed at a humorous anecdote from a past holiday, and the sound of our collective laughter mingled with the crackling fire, creating a comforting, melodic background to our conversation. I reflected on how the morning's experience of feeling left behind had taught me patience, understanding, and the value of trust, and I felt a renewed appreciation for the resilience of our family bond. As the sun continued to set, the sky outside turning shades of pink and orange, we decided to gather near the window to watch the twilight snow fall, each of us silent for a few moments, savoring the beauty and calm of the scene. I felt a deep sense of peace and contentment, recognizing that the true essence of Christmas was not in perfect planning or grand gestures but in the presence, love, and shared experiences of family. The warmth of the fire, the gentle glow of the tree lights, the laughter and stories shared throughout the day, and the quiet beauty of the winter landscape outside combined to create a memory that would endure far beyond this holiday. As we sat together, sipping cocoa and enjoying the simple joy of being present with one another, I understood that even a day that began with worry and uncertainty could be transformed into one of the most meaningful and cherished experiences of the season, leaving a lasting impression of love, connection, and the magic of togetherness.